I'm Johan Rashivega, and here we are in our sound room in Holyoke Media at One Core Plaza in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and I want to welcome the Fantauzzi brothers, Eli, Kahlil. You are here visiting Holyoke and the Valley because you are on tour with your film, Nos Tenemos. And what an amazing experience, what a beautiful story, powerful, inspiring. And what an amazing opportunity to have you here. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Muchísimas gracias. It feels good to be present.
So you created this film documentary based on the experiences that you saw, particularly in the small town of Comerío in Puerto Rico after the devastation of Hurricane María. And this became a story that, even though the film covers a specific period of time, that story is still happening as we speak today. So what can you tell us about what it was for you, the creation of this film, and how this has impacted your own personal experience, not only as persons, but as filmmakers and as mentors of a community that is thriving today?
Wow, that's a big question. Let's see. So starting it, we've been on a filmmaking journey for about 20 years as independent filmmakers, and we've been looking at ways of doing that in a non-extractive way. So many times people parachute into our communities, tell stories, they do research, they write books, they make movies, make films, or make careers and get paid, but our communities are in the same place. And there's no improvement. And so we really think about how to tell stories with a community rather than about a community. And I think that's exemplified in this new film, Nos Tenemos. And it shows the practice, like we've been at this for a long time, and now we've reached into this point, and it's been transformative, and not only for myself, but everybody who was involved in the project.
I think also as being Boricuas, Puerto Ricans that were born in the diaspora, it really helped us create a new relationship, not just with Comerío, but with the island itself, and understanding the struggles and understanding what's happening to our people in terms of after Hurricane Maria, but also given the context of colonialism, given the context of imperialism, understanding that there's been so many ways that our island has been taken advantage of. Seeing people being able to stand up for themselves, seeing people reclaiming and rebuilding their community, not only building what was, but building what could be with that kind of vision in their mind was a beautiful process. And I think it transformed us on a human level, but also as filmmakers.
And so the frameworks created will last lifetimes, thinking about just recovery. And of course, we were hit by a natural disaster, but the government failing to helping, the municipalities failing to helping when the people are in need. And this is happening around the world. This is happening right here in Holyoke. So it's about how can the community come together, and what does a just recovery look like after that failure? And so yeah, I think one thing that the film shows is that it has to be youth-led. Youth have to be a part of it because they're not just the future, they're the present, they're here, and they're being affected by what's happening, and helping us dream of the future that we deserve and the future that we want to create together.
Actually, following up on the youth-led initiative, which is the energy and the core that helped to many things to happen, as are told in the story on Nos Tenemos. I would like to add not only youth-led, woman-led, which is another really important aspect of acknowledging, honoring, and supporting the work of women when they organize and they take the lead on things because they know what is needed. They understand how, as a community, as a family, things need to be made so they can survive and move forward. And with this, I think the effort that helped La Maraña to be part of this story, and today an organizing group that is continuing this work, how this was part of the story, and how this also was something that you can somehow share, you learn from it.
Yes, it's not a coincidence that María Ortiz became the leader. When we look at how injustice affects our communities, it affects the poorest of us, it affects the most disenfranchised, so it affects women, and not just women, and it affects Black women. And so her being a young Afro-Boricua woman who takes lead is not a coincidence, and the people that stepped up in the time of need are usually the young women because they're affected the most. And she holds that role beautifully and articulately, and I wish she was here today, but hopefully she'll come back on the next trip to Holyoke. And so I think, yes, as Kahlil says often, it's a time where we need to step back and allow that youth leadership, that women-led leadership, to take the reins, take control, and have their voice not only heard, but allow them to take the lead.
I think also growing up personally, we were raised by a single mother, and I think that it's our role as men to take on the issue of sexism, to take on the issues that affect women and other oppressed communities, because we have traditionally had the power. We've had we've had the opportunity to have positions of leadership. So it's, I think, also our responsibility as men to really acknowledge and hold up the mujeres and the women that are leading and that are doing such important work.
So when we look at injustice, we have to look at privilege. And so that's the thing, is being a man in this society is a privilege. So it is our job to tear down machismo and to help balance the playing field.
And when we talk about the impact and the beautiful way this tragedy helped to this community to grow and to find their own power and their own capacity to come back and reemerge, you are seeing, when you are here in Holyoke particularly, one of the largest communities of Puerto Ricans living outside of the island, what did you saw as connections, as part of that other side of the story after María that is still happening here in our surrounding? What have you seen? What have you heard? How this connects to the point of the ending of your film, Nos Tenemos, and could be maybe a sequel or an appendix to the original story?
Definitely. I see our creativity. I see our love. I see the embrace, and I see people coming together when the government should be stepping in. I see our people stepping in and filling those gaps and making sure, creating space for the young people to have their leadership. So last night at Holyoke High School was a beautiful conversation about the work that's being done. And then you're like, oh, you're over there at the community college. You're at the high school. You're in ethnic studies. Like, let's sit down together and strategize and dream and plan what we want to create together. Because so often it happens in silos, right? It happens apart. And so the power when we can come together and create the future that we want.
And I think that for us, we're just kind of learning the power and the beauty of the Puerto Rican and the Latinx community here in Holyoke. But also just understanding the history that, Puerto Ricans were forced to leave the island during different moments in time, right? Because of economic reasons, because of different issues that they were facing. And we've met young students here that experienced Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico and are now living in this community. So we know that there are communities and family members and young people that have that trauma, that have those memories, that have experienced Hurricane Maria firsthand. And this was also, I think, a part of our healing process in terms of being able to talk about what happened and share some of the beauty and some of the resilience that communities were able to do and stand with. And so I think that this is a part of the healing process that we have as a community as well.
I also want to say, just being ourselves, creating spaces for us to be ourselves is resistance. In a culture where they say you have to do it one way, you have to do it in an American way. And when we say, no, vamos a hacerlo como estilo boricua, when we're going to do it like ourselves, when we bring our bomba, when we bring our food, when we bring our plena, these are all forms of resistance and creating space for us to be ourselves. And that allows the next generation to continue and be connected to the island. And that it's possible for folks to go back and forth and learn from each other. And I think that is beautiful in a culture that Holyoke has.
And growing up in California, we didn't have that, right? Growing up in California, we had the Latino, Mexicano, Centroamericano community, but we didn't really have a Puerto Rican community. So to drive down the streets and see restaurants with the bandera de Puerto Rico, to see barbershops, to see murals that celebrate our Puerto Ricanness is a really beautiful thing. I think that it really inspired both of us. And we know that the work needs to be done here and that there is people doing that work in this community.
One thing that I remember, one scene that stuck in my mind from the screening of the movie, it was this elder, still being the one who is giving, sharing his wisdom and his words about there is joy in sharing, and that's all that matters. It tells the power and the beauty of a community, not only in Comerío, but in every municipality, every town in Puerto Rico, and even outside of the island, when being together is what makes everything possible, despite the challenges, the struggles, the disasters, natural or man-made. And I think that is what allowed for such a strong connection during the conversation, because we could see different representations of our community in regards of age, race, background, language, and it was so beautiful to see how everything connected through this opportunity of being together. How did you saw that overcome of this outcome of this screening in the community that attended the screening?
Yeah, if we want to create an inclusive Holyoke and change the future of Holyoke, we have to do it all together, and everybody has a role to play. And you can see that what happened in Comerío. So you're talking about Don Pepe, who was there every day, and he said, "Tú sabes qué es felicidad? Felicidad es compartir." So to that happiness is sharing, especially with those who don't have. And so he's receiving a hot plate of food because you didn't have food, you especially didn't have hot food. And at the same time, he's giving us this jewel and he's sharing. And so I saw so many times in Puerto Rico people coming with this idea of, oh, I'm here to help, I'm here to donate, and they're taking selfies and photos with it and like a savior complex. And it's so important to see that it's a compartir, that we're here to share, we're here to learn, we're here to be a part of something. And I think that the film is able to share that sentimiento, that feeling.
And I think that the intergenerationality of our communities, it needs to be celebrated. And I think that the elders have gems and the young people have power. And there's this beauty that can happen when you show up with that willingness and with that caring. And I think that the film demonstrates that so clearly. And I think in showing in different communities here in Holyoke, sometimes it wasn't our responsibility as filmmakers to be leading the conversation. Like the conversation is amongst the community here to talk about issues that are relative to the film, but also that are being addressed and being faced here locally. So it was so beautiful to see different elements of the community, activists, community leaders, teachers, educators, and youth all having these conversations locally. I think that it really inspired us to continue doing this work and knowing that it's not just about the movie, but it's about the conversation. It's about the impact that the movie can have.
You were mentioning at the beginning of this conversation about being involved with a community, but not just parachuting on it, but to providing them with something. And Nos Tenemos did that because right now, people who are involved in the story are working on their own personal and professional development because of these interactions. Share a little bit of what was the chain reaction with the people who were part of this story and today are part of something even bigger.
So I'll start with myself, and I feel like I've received more than I could ever give. Kahlil talked about it, being in the diaspora and feeling estranged from the island. Now when I go back and I go to Comerío, I get out the car and I get 10 hugs. It just feels great, and it filled the void that I had. And then I'll talk about María Ortiz, who was a community leader and now is a director at La Maraña, working in 6 other communities. And to see their work, lamaraña.org, is so beautiful. And to have them do participatory design and planning and dreaming of what these next 6 communities across the island want to create for themselves. And then I'll talk about Yayo. Yayo got a small Canon camera as a donation and just fell in love with telling stories and communicating. And so when we brought him to the world premiere in New York and we brought him to California to premiere it there, he fell in love with traveling. So he went back to Puerto Rico, he got his passport, and literally the world opened up to him. He's going to Colombia, to the Amazon, to Mexico, documenting Dia de los Muertos, and is a professional filmmaker, photographer.
And also thinking on another aspect that is so important to the film, the representation through music. Mm-hmm. You allowed the opportunity for local talent to be showcased in a beautiful way, beautiful and careful way. That is nothing that connects to the mainstream view, but with the authenticity of telling a story through an artistic way, which is hip hop, which is a strong element in the culture, the popular culture in Puerto Rico, because it also includes those elements that are part of the history and the mixture of different influences that are part of the Puerto Rican music. So tell us a little bit about the piece that closes up the film and the music all over the story.
Yeah, I think that for us as filmmakers, we have focused on music, art, and culture, and we've made many documentaries that has been the sole focus of it. So to do a film that talks about what happened in Puerto Rico after a hurricane, we knew that Puerto Rican culture is centered around music, and that for young people that were doing this work, music is what motivated them, it excited them, it made them capable of dealing with so much challenges. And so for us as filmmakers, we really wanted to center the music and also edit to the music and the feel and the energy of the film. And also we are very, happy to collaborate with Hijo de Borinquen, who's an amazing musician, who's a hip hop artist. Us growing up in the hip hop generation, that is also how we approach filmmaking. And so to be able to work with him and to really have him capture the essence and the beauty of the film through his language and through the way that he approaches hip hop using bomba plena as a background, it really enabled us to make those connections and for him to be able to speak truth to power through his music.
I think it goes along with our entire style of filmmaking. It's like, why would you use a popular song that doesn't have the content when you have an amazing artist from the island who experienced María and watches the film and literally writes from his heart to what he experienced in relationship to what was happening in Comerío. And it's just beautiful. And you could talk about construction the same way. Why would you hire a Texas construction company to come and rebuild Comerío when you could have Tío Luis's house in the film be rebuilt by his nephew, his son? And so those talents and those skills and that labor and money, resources, stays in the community. And I've heard in Holyoke that happens here. So when we got the tour of Holyoke, that's one of the reasons why it stayed afloat and didn't crumble, is that the money in Holyoke stays in Holyoke, that you go and support that bodega, that you go and support that restaurant. And that's one of the reasons why when the depression or when the country was feeling the economic collapse, so Holyoke was able to maintain, because you're spending money with each other and keeping that money alive.
So Nos Tenemos is a story of resilience, of celebration, and at the same time, an eye-opener for many people to understand the deep impact of Hurricane Maria by itself as a natural phenomenon, but also to reveal the dysfunctionality of local government in Puerto Rico. That is, it has been a major disaster for decades. Yeah. sometimes it feels like even by design is a disaster. And when you see that some of those disasters are reflected in dysfunctionalities that you see in other places outside the island, and coincidentally maybe, where the diaspora is located, what makes you think? What type of stories you think you can continue sharing with the world when you see this, especially when you are on tour and connecting with people who know, understand, and feels what it happened in Comerío?
I'll start with the story of education. When they closing over 300 schools, and they bring a non-Boricua to the island named Julia Keller, who was getting paybacks from people, taking bribes essentially, and had a federal investigation and was found guilty. And I believe she's from Massachusetts. So yeah, it's incredible to see the way that it's replicated. And like you said, it is definitely by design. It's a system ever since the United States took control of the island, they said who was in control. And so even when we had the chance to vote it in, it's still the same system of oppression that exists. And I think Hurricane Maria made the young people really wake up to the injustice that was happening. So when Ricky Rosselló is writing text saying, we don't even care about these people who lost their lives, the young people said, yeah, basta. That's enough, and we're going to make him get out of office. We took to the streets like never before and literally made him renounce and get out the office. So it shows the power that we have, but we can't stop there. And I think Holyoke should see that power too, that we can oust people, that they can't come in disrespecting and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that means us as a community have to hold these people accountable, because without that, they're going to continue to rob and use the money unjustly.
And I think in the film, the scene where they go into Congress and they're demanding to be heard, and they're telling to be, they're being forced to be silenced, and they're like, no, we have a story to share. We have a story that needs to be heard. It has to do with that holding government, holding people accountable. But it's also, that's not the only line, right? We understand that the first thing they did was to be there for each other. The first thing they did was to be able to show up for each other and not wait for government, support, not wait for institutions or FEMA or other people to come. They were willing and ready to activate and create that change and create that support locally. But they're also saying, look, we also have these people that need to be held accountable. So there's kind of like this, both things are important.
You mentioned education as an example of what happened, but also I want now to bring it as part of the work and your mission, not only as filmmakers showing your story, but also providing tools and resources for the communities to learn from this experience, to learn from this story, and to do their own and take action for improve their own community. So what are the resources that you are providing additionally to the screening of Nos Tenemos?
So we're really promoting 3 different frameworks. One framework is created by Movement Generation, and it's about a just transition, how to move from extractive society, extractive governance to cooperative governance. And frameworks are so beautiful because for me, they're like a roadmap. It shows us where we're going. And so from that big overview, then we have a just recovery. So La Maraña gives their each step process of what a just recovery looks like, created by Boricuas for Boricuas on the island. And so this isn't a model where you just say, okay, go and place it anywhere, but you learn from and say, what does that mean for us, and how should we do it locally? And then the last one is about just storytelling, or non-extractive storytelling. And so in one example, I'll tell you, the first one is, instead of parachuting into communities, what would be the opposite of that? Being invited in. And in the film, you literally see that, people inviting us into their home.
And I think we also really have been using the film as a call to action, and to create awareness, to understand that we want to reach Boricuas and Puerto Rican communities, but we also want to reach our allies. We want to reach people that are not familiar with what has happened in Puerto Rico, and we want them to be able to show up for issues that are pertaining to Puerto Ricanos on different parts of all over the country and all over the world. So it's like it's for us, for Boricuas, and for our community, but it's also to create awareness and create solidarity amongst all of the communities that live in different areas.
So after this tour here in Western Massachusetts, what comes next?
Oh, we're so excited. So we came here actually from California, where María was able to join us. We're off to Pennsylvania. I think we have 6 screenings in 5 days. María coming. We're in after-school programs. We're in community centers. And we're at a big performing arts center in downtown. So a little bit of everything. Hopefully we get all different types of the society in there. And then from there, I go back to the island, continue doing the work. We have a project called Cine Solar Rodante, which is a solar cinema project that was created after María when we didn't have electricity, but it was also there after the earthquakes when people were living in encampments. And then we were able to take films and food to the community. And after the earthquakes, it was a global pandemic where we couldn't be indoors. And so we could be outdoors watching theater with masks on, or watching movies with masks on and be safe. And so this tool that we created has really helped us through all these different disasters and is still thriving today, being ran by the young people of Comerío.
And then I continue with the tour. We head out to New Jersey. We head out to New York City, to community centers, also to a couple universities, and also like just really realizing and recognizing the importance of doing this work throughout different parts of the country. So from the West Coast to the East Coast, representing this film, having these conversations, activating and learning from communities like the community here in Holyoke, we're inspired and we're excited to continue this work.
Yeah, and I think it will be amazing to having you coming back, and especially now that we have this space here in downtown Holyoke, being Holyoke Media, that it could be the headquarters for anything that you could design, create, and share with the community. I think it will be an amazing experience that could definitely be more of those beautiful, inspiring, and powerful stories to continue being created. How can people get to know more about your work, maybe follow and possibly share with their friends or family where you're going to be and what are you going to be doing?
Yes, so we have 2 websites. One is our production company, Fist Up TV. That's FISTUP.TV. And then the film website is WeStillHerePR.com. WeStillHerePR.com. And yes, this center is beautiful. It blew my mind to come in here to see what you've created. And it's like I'm just so excited, and my dream is to be able to come back and not only show the film and have these conversations, but do an actual storytelling project together with the youth. So Holyoke Media Center is definitely in my dreams for this next year, and I want to give a huge thanks to Evelín Aquino for making this happen, to be the one to connecting us to community centers, to colleges, to the youth center, and just making this trip so impactful and so beautiful.
Yeah, for us, it's not just about screening the film. It's about giving the tools and sharing the tools with the community. So to be able to do storytelling workshops, to be able to do talleres on how to use equipment, how to do photography, how to do videography, it's this center has those resources. And so it's time now to bring the community in, to bring the youth in, so that we can collaborate together and create some magical projects.
Well, Eli Kahlil, it's such a joy having you here. Thank you so much for bringing Nos Tenemos for the community in Holyoke to see it. Thank you for also bringing that reminder that there is power in our own community and we need to use it. And you saw how much that reminder made an impact on the community who gathered on the screening. And thank you for being also able to create something beautiful out of a disaster, because those are the stories that are meant to be told for generations to come. How despite natural or unnatural disasters, we as a community can always continue growing up because nos tenemos.
Nos tenemos. Muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad. Thank you for the opportunity. Claro que sí, Holyoke. Nos tenemos.
We got each other, and we really are excited to coming back, excited about the potential and the possibilities. So thank you so much for opening your doors and allowing us in.